This week in media, the Washington Free Beacon has the story. Actually, it's a lot of different websites have the story. Clinton Foundation head accused Clinton of paranoia. Now, look, I'm going to have to do this story in stages. There's no way I can do this in one segment. I'm getting all the audio sound bites in with it. But I do want to get started on this because I'm already factoring in mixing telephone calls and everything for a properly and well-balanced program, as only a highly trained broadcast specialist can execute without a producer. Oh, speaking of, look, I'm sorry, this is inside baseball, and I can't, since I've reminded myself of it. What, you don't think I should mention it? Yeah, I'm not going to mention any names. You don't think I should mention this? Why, it's no big deal. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Do not put doubt in front of me like this. Here I was proceeding full speed with confidence and bravado, and now you're making me doubt what I was going to do. It's harmless. What could go wrong? What in the world are you worried about if I'm... It could all go wrong, did you say? I'm not going to mention any names. Was never going to mention any names. It's not a big deal. I just saw that it's too inside baseball. You know what? Even if you understood it, you wouldn't care. You think they would? Oh, now you're really confusing me. You think they would care? I mean, talking about you folks, the audience. Well, look. Now that this cloud of doubt has been seeded, I shall pause and consider whether or not to discuss, and just stick with the Hillary stuff here, because the audio has been discovered. Clinton Foundation head Donna Shalala privately expressed concerns about Bill and Hillary Clinton's mental state around 1994 and 1995, saying they had become paranoid and fixated on right-wing conspiracies. All of this is according to previously unpublished audio recordings that the Washington Free Beacon, committing a random act of journalism, found. In 1994, 4 years before Hillary Clinton said that a vast right-wing conspiracy was trying to take down her husband's presidency, Donna Shalala, who was Health and Human Services Secretary, said that this theory of a right-wing conspiracy was already embraced by the Clintons. They've become paranoia, thinking people are out to get them. This right-wing conspiracy stuff, said Shalala. And she was in a good position to know. She was chairman of the Children's Defense Fund from 1992 to 1993, where she worked Mrs. Clinton, and she left there, and Marion Wright Edelman took over. In 93, Bill Clinton appointed Shalala to be as Secretary of Health and Human Services, and she served for 8 years in that role, becoming the nation's longest-serving Health and Human Services Secretary. Then she went to the University of Miami, so she'd be close to Janet Reno. They took a pickup truck trip to get, remember that? Shalala was actually telling what fun it was to get in Reno's pickup truck, and they would have just pedal to the metal and hit the road. So that's who is speaking. She was recently appointed president of the Clinton Foundation. The tapes are part of a series of interviews with Hillary and top aides conducted by Haynes Johnson, who used to be at the Washington Post. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, Haynes Johnson, who was on the Sunday shows all the time back then. And the Washington Free Beacon got a hold of him from the Wisconsin Historical Society on the University of Wisconsin campus because Shalala was the president of the University of Wisconsin before the Clintons tapped her for greatness in 1993. The recordings provide additional insight into how Hillary Clinton was affected by her unsuccessful push for health care reform. Aides feared at the time that Hillary had become paranoid, burnt out, and prone to angry outbursts, according to the tapes. Shalala says the Clintons are feeling sorry for themselves. They talk about conspiracies all the time. That there really is a conspiracy out there to get us. That we don't have a chance. That people don't understand how much good we've done. Our message isn't getting out because these people are beating us. She's talking about talk radio. Folks, there was no Fox News then. There was no conservative blogosphere. It was just me and what the Clintons refer to on the tape, you will hear it in a moment, as the Limbaugh clones. And we... How about that for a tease? Back in a minute.
Rush Limbaugh.
Okay, back to the Clintons now, ladies and gentlemen. This is, again, the audio that's been found at the University of Wisconsin in the archives by the Washington Free Beacon. It's Donna Shalala telling everybody just how paranoid the Clintons were back in 1993 and 1994, and specifically over Clinton's health care plan that Hillary was trying to get implemented. And Shalala said it was embarrassing. They really do believe this vast right-wing conspiracy out to get them and foil them at every turn. In fact, in 1995, the Clinton White House drafted what became known as the Conspiracy Commerce Memo. The Conspiracy Commerce Memo, which purported to show how negative stories about the Clintons filtered into the mainstream media from conservative outlets and talk radio. The existence of the memo was reported in 1997, but it wasn't published in full until earlier this year. Hillary Clinton appeared to reference this theory during one August 1994 interview with Haynes Johnson. That's who the tapes are made with. She said, "You got a well-organized right-wing media operation, everything from talk radio, radical right, religious broadcasting, a Wall Street Journal editorial page, a Washington Times, and their advocacy journalists." Folks, this was a profound moment in American history. It really was, because up until 1988, when this program started, the left owned the media, and it was monolithic. And every Democrat knew that the media was a friend and an ally. And they just weren't accustomed to having opposing media. It hit them out of the blue, upside of the head. They didn't know how to deal with it. They had never had to deal with a genuinely combative media. And here came this program in 1988, which begot a number of local conservative talk shows, and eventually Fox News in 1997, and the blogs came along. The Drudge Report's in there. Drudge Report started getting really big about 1994, 1995. The Drudge Report was originally an email dispatch, if you remember. The Drudge Report was an email. You know how I first heard the Drudge Report? Drudge knew that I was going to resign my TV show before we had told anybody. And I didn't know Drudge. I said, "Who is this guy?" So I started getting to know Drudge, and so it wasn't until, I forget the year, but his was an email dispatch. CompuServe and other email address email dispatch is how the Drudge Report first existed. And it became what it is today, a full-blown website. And then the Lewinsky thing, they say, is what put him on the map, but he was on the map long before that. Anyhow, it's fundamental to remember, it's crucially important for everybody to remember that here are the Clintons admitting their paranoia, Donna Shalala admitting it, because they didn't know how to deal with a non-supportive media. They were flummoxed by it, and all it was just me on the radio and some other local talk show guys in the Wall Street Journal editorial page, and they're acting like it is the biggest threat to their existence ever. Go to the audio tapes here and you'll see what we're talking about. August of 1994, Haynes Johnson at the Washington Post interviewing First Lady Hillary Rodham. And here's what she says. She talked about being heckled during a July 1994 speech in Seattle.
I have been heckled, for years. I mean, that's not new. There's a radio talk show host in Seattle who's a kind of, Limbaugh clone who for a week was just whipping people up against me. They were men in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I had not seen faces like that since segregation battles in the 60s. They had such hatred on their faces. The thing that I guess scared me, though, is the look of the people that he pulled.
The look of the people, the look of the conservative boy. I hadn't seen faces like that since the segregation battles of the 60s. I'm telling you, they were bamboozled. They didn't know what to do. And they were genuinely made paranoid about it. Now, this is a study. This was not an ad-lib comment. This is how they decided to deal with it. This is getting together with Carville and Begala and Stephanopoulos, who are all in the war room at the time. And I'm telling you, when she says that they were in their 20s and 30s, I hadn't seen faces like that since segregation, that was maybe even focus grouped. But she just didn't ad-lib that. That just didn't come royal. It might have been her inclination. But I guarantee you this is what they came up with as a means of discrediting and describing this opposition. Because remember, again, I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but it's crucially important for they did not know how to deal with any media that genuinely practiced journalism against them. And in 1994, it was the peak. It was huge. And everybody, and the reason it was because there was nobody else doing anything like it. The media was all monolithic. It was all what it is today. It was all the same. It was all repetitive. It was the same stories treated the same way, in the same order, no matter what source you consulted. Conservative talk radio stood out major way because it was so different. And to people on the left, Democrat politicians, they were stymied by it. Here's the next clip where she continues about how shocking all these people from the right wing were and how frightened they were and how they had to deal with it.
You don't have any counterbalance to this incredible 24-hour-a-day hate. If you read Limbaugh's transcripts, and he's very clever. I mean, he's not as bald and blatant as this guy in Seattle, who, or the guy in, Detroit who calls my husband Caligula because he murders people. We've always had newspapers and broadsides taking on presidents and saying terrible things about them, but it wasn't pervasive. It did not penetrate into every corner 24 hours a day. And I think that's scary.
Yes, it's scary. It was relentless. And there was no counterbalance. See, that's key. There was no counterbalance? What about all the rest of the media? I'll tell you what shocked me. And it really did. And we have this in the soundbite roster coming up for those of you, some of you will remember it, some of you haven't heard it. Clinton was flying into St. Louis in 1994 on Air Force One. He's doing an interview before he arrives with the morning crew at KMOX, our affiliate in St. Louis. He starts complaining about me. Now, you got Rush Limbaugh coming up here. When you guys finish, you come up at noon. You have 3 hours. 3 hours. And there's nobody to do anything. What did he say? 3 hours. Say whatever he wants, and nobody's going to say anything otherwise. There's no truth detector. Here's the President of the United States from the biggest bully pulpit in the world complaining about some guy on the radio for 3 hours. Now, at the time, I wondered, why in the world? This makes no sense. The President of the United States ought not be mentioning anybody in the media. All that does is elevate them. It conveys importance. Why in the world is he doing this? It really, in a media performance sense, in a presidential politics sense, it made no sense whatsoever. So the answer had to be he was genuinely worried about this. And now we know that that's the case. They were genuinely worried. It's 24/7 talk radio machine. My God, it's pervasive. Read Limbaugh's transcript. He's very clever. And he's not like these local clones who call my husband Caligula. Jeez. I got to take a break here, folks, but there's more to this. I just have to, take care of some business at the same time. So we'll be back and continue. Still have the 2FBT sweepstakes. We're back with another great one to announce today before the program ends, so don't go away.
Father's Day is coming.